Hey guys, I'm Tim.
I am Andrew.
I'm Spencer.
And I'm Daniel.
And Andrew's back.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yes, it feels so good.
Today we are going to do a video for Arrival Push. This will be coming on Kickstarter. This is a paid promotion, but we wouldn't take the money if we didn't enjoy the game. So Arrival Push is 1 to 6 players. It is a game of vectors. And basically we are air traffic controllers and we're all trying to land our planes in the airport one at a time. It sounds very easy, but guess what? It is not.
Yeah, things get kind of crowded here in the middle of the
weather
city.
is your if weather hurts you a lot,
No
it can
doubt.
get tricky.
No doubt. Daniel, would you mind walking us through like a brief playthrough?
Yeah, sure. I'll do a real quick basic teach because we should point out this is prototype stuff.
Yes.
So things can change, rules can change. But the basic premise of the game is over 15 rounds, you're going to be trying to land as many planes as you can in your designated airport because planes are worth points. You do this by your opening hand here. Everyone has their own player color with a designated sector of airspace. And you will have a starting position that tells you where all your planes go and what starting speed they start on. That's your setup right there. Then on your turn, you're going to, well, I guess first we'll cover the event phase stuff because actually, other than the first round stuff, there are events, weather cards, and launch cards. Basically, any planes on the constellations here are going to launch first, dependent on what the card says. I got an example right here. Then there's going to be weather on all the different things. The pluses mean the weather gets worse, the minuses means it gets better, and the blank means it stays the same. So basically, you start with the just basic weather, and they can turn into the big ones, and they can even flip to even worse storms. So the weather card is going to designate that. And then event cards is just a whole bunch of stuff that's going to drastically change the feel of the game. So we're going to do all that. Then you're just going to move your planes very simply. You can choose to rotate one tick on your plane. You can choose to spend an engine to adjust the speed up or down one, dependent on the plane. Some planes can't go up past a certain point. And then you're going to move equal to their speed. You can move all your planes in any order, and all the plane movement is simultaneous. We will all be doing this at the same time. The one exception to that rule is if we need to fly into each other's airspace. Basically, if I need to fly into Spencer's airspace, I just say, hey, Spencer, I'm going to need to fly into your airspace. Can I land here? And as long as Spencer isn't landing there on his turn,
Roger.
I'm allowed to go there. But if Spencer wants to land there, he does have priority, and he can say, no, sorry, I'm going to be landing there, and I have to figure out another way to do it. There are negatives if your plane has to make adjustments because of this. We won't go too far into the negatives, maybe an open discussion. But everyone's going to move all their planes. Then you're going to enter a scoring phase where if you have a plane on your designated airport, it's going to come off the board and go back to the card, and there are points listed on the card for what you get. You can then choose to redeploy that plane in the matching constellation, or you can not get rid of that card because you will be able to replace it with a better card later as an option in the next phase, which I can just quickly go over. The draft phase is basically a choose your adventure phase. You can either take more engine tokens to change your speed later. You can, like I said, get a new card from your opening hand of airplane cards that you have right here, or you can take a launch token, which is basically, so you see this launch one right here says that the constellation and the comet is launching, but the moon is not. So if I had a plane on the moon, I could say, well, I want moon to launch this round, and I can play this. Everyone can have a max of 1 launch token. And then the end of the round just involves everyone flipping their tokens back over, showing that their planes are ready, because when you move a plane, you flip that just so people can look around and see if everyone is done with the movement phase.
And part of the puzzle is you have to move all of your planes in your
Airspace.
slice, in your airspace. So since every plane has to move, you kind of have to balance your resources to make sure everything can not only work around your weather, but getting it into your one hex that can land your plane.
Listen,
Yeah,
airports are expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the basic premise of the game. You're going to be doing that over and over again over 15 rounds, trying to get the most points, trying to avoid weather, and trying to manipulate the airspace, like Andrew was saying, with your neighbors, and negotiating on where you're going to be.
Yes, and a very important thing is if Spencer said, no, you cannot move there because I'm going to be there, he has to move there. He cannot then change his mind. And then also if for some reason there's airspace, a conflict in the airspace, the player whose airspace that is gets priority. And then, yeah, you then I mean, but otherwise, great job. That is a, that's a very quick and straightforward, simple way on how this game plays. And the nice thing is the rounds are basically simultaneous. All the movement, everybody, just make sure everybody's done with one phase before you move on to the next one, and you're ready to go. Just some general thoughts on the game, guys. Again, keep in mind this is prototype components.
Of course.
So all of that can change.
I'm going to jump right in just because, we recently interviewed the designer, and I mentioned some stuff in that video that I want to re-mention here because this is where that information is more important. This game has two things that I absolutely love in the game. First of all, the weather is so cool to me. Like, you can get unlucky with it, sure, just like real life and just like a lot of other games, but just the way it's implemented, I do really, really like, because something I talked about in the other video is I like that weather is kind of regionalized in real life, right? Like, if a place is really like rainy, it's going to be really rainy most of the time, right? It doesn't just randomly change weather. You can, but weather tends to be kind of regional in how it works. Like if places are really cloudy, if places are really snowy, it doesn't just randomly teleport all around the earth. And so you have these regionalized things here where this area is always going to have the area with the lightning, this area is always going to have the place with the wind, right? So that kind of thing. Yeah. But then on top of that too, it doesn't just randomly spawn in and out, it phases in and it phases out. You're not going to go from terrible storm to no lightning at all, but you could go to weaker lightning and then even weaker and then gone and then come back and then get stronger. And I think that is really implemented well in a way of feeling kind of based on real life and stuff, but in a gamey way. It's not like so simulator that it feels forced into me. It feels gamey. There are paths to fly in between these if you can pull it off with your speed and everything. And I really, really like the way that the weather is implemented. And then one of the other things, there's a couple things, simultaneous gameplay is always great. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But I also am just a huge fan of taking a real life job and turning it into a game. Yeah. I really like seeing more of that done in gaming and making it obviously fun. That's the hard part, right? An example I bring up is there are games where like you play as lawyers sometimes, right? That's not exactly the most fun thing to a lot of people to think about, but when you can get a game where you're just playing this and you're having to manipulate certain things and everything, and you're having fun while doing it, I think that's really cool to have in the hobby. And so taking air traffic control and kind of honing it into this type of game, I just think is a really cool way to get this to people. And I don't know if I would say this is like a recruitment tool, but it can get people interested in something they've never seen before, right? This vectoring aircraft and stuff like that.
It just steps into a different genre. It's like you're not working a farm. You're navigating aircraft to land.
Right. I'm also just a huge fan of a word I used, and I will absolutely use it again. This feels like a perpetual motion machine to me. You're basically trying to line everything up and then never break the cycle. You want everything to flow perfectly, so you're getting points every round, and you basically just want to keep replacing your airplanes to get more and more points out of them while you're keeping your line going. That won't happen because of weather and because of speed and events.
What if your planes go more in like a toilet bowl circle as they kind
3
of
hours as you wait over BWIF?
Just personally, as someone who really likes like puzzle solving, like I do Sudoku for fun. Like that's just who I am. I know, that's just who I am. And so getting this kind of like game where the whole point is you're literally trying to build a perpetual motion machine, I think is really cool. So I have a lot of fun doing that, but that's my opening.
Yeah, well,
argument.
I think to kind of add on to that a little bit is 15 rounds sounds like a lot at first, but once you start, like you get some planes that are just way out and you're like, man, I need every single one of those rounds. And also they go by relatively quickly because everybody's moving simultaneously. The only stuff that like you basically stop once you're done moving, wait for everybody else to finish, and then you do a little bit of bookkeeping, and then you go right back into moving again. Yeah. And so they do go by really quickly. I don't feel like there's a ton of downtime, which is really good, unless you're waiting on Spencer. But then, other than that,
thinking about where he might think about going.
I was the last one to move.
Now, to be fair, this is a game that you could include in the rulebook, a quick game setting, because I felt like 15 rounds was a little long. I think this game could get by with 12 rounds, and like I don't think it should be a so this is the
prototype.
This is the prototype scoreboard here, and peaks out at 50, and in 15 rounds, everybody's getting past 50 points.
Yeah.
So
even me.
And that's saying something.
yeah, he's getting there. But still, like I feel like this could have closed nicely at 12. But then again, there's nothing that could say like, oh, if you want a shorter version of the game,
Right.
cut it down to 12. You'll still get that. You'll still get your perpetual motion machine, going, and it'll feel good. But it'll end a little bit sooner.
Yeah, and I actually do kind of agree. I think 12 might be a really good number for it. But also, I will say that it's not like this game drags out and overstays its welcome to me. I think it might feel slightly better as a slightly shorter game, but I don't think 15 rounds. That's all I'm saying, right? It's not like it was terrible.
But I could
20 would be.
I could also see people right out. I could see people going though, like 12 is like, man, I need like one more round, or two more rounds.
I feel like that's what gets people to
That's
play
a
again.
better feeling.
That's a
to
better
you.
feeling to like open it back up again.
There's also, in the beginning of the game, your planes are in specific positions, and they're going to head towards the airstrip, and it's not going to be too difficult to figure out when one is going to land and things like that. But then as you're getting further along, you have that line of things, events start getting in, and that's when it starts getting interesting, and that's when I'm like, maybe you do want a few more rounds because you're going to start having planes getting in the way of each other and events stopping them and everything backing up. And
yeah, I literally spent 5 rounds like having just planes moving at one speed, just click, 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 and then just kind of getting them to line up. So like was still scoring one every round, but it was like sweating bullets to try to not get the negative points for having to divert them. But yeah, I mean, this is really, really fun. The way that they implement sort of that, it's kind of program movement, but it's not. Like the movement has been programmed for you, basically. Yeah. Everything is moving X amount of spaces. You have a little bit of say because you can turn it one way or another. You can spend an engine token to increase or decrease your speed depending on the plane. Some can't be increased. Yep. And then, you are just like, okay, let's hope that I plan this right. And see what happens.
If you couldn't choose the order you moved your airplanes, it would be program movement for sure.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
The second you can choose the order, it opens it up to
gives
a
you,
whole other thing.
And I would go with more like that's some mitigation, that gives you... It gives you, in a positive way, gives you some options.
Well, being the aircraft control. No, you go first.
Yeah.
You're the aircraft control.
No, you wait.
But, and then again, like Dan said about the weather is really cool. It really jacked my board last time we played because you can, there are some planes that can move even through the light weather. You'll take some negative points for doing it. But I had horrible, horrible weather and you cannot move through that. And so like I was constantly already having to kind of go out and then find a good time to then divert back in because sometimes, this storm shrunk back down. And then by the time I got it back, it's bad again, and it's like, what the heck?
And we will see what changes in the full release with the full rules and everything, because I will say that is one thing with the game that in its current state, there is a luck factor with weather that can win you games. Yeah. If someone has clear weather the entire game and you have bad weather the entire game, they're going to win.
Probably.
I don't see a case where they don't. And so there's definitely a luck factor there. I've never seen it be that egregious. I mean, you can see the points are pretty close.
I mean, I screwed myself. The weather is not the reason why I was not winning.
I'm just saying, if you're like it, because I think this game is going to attract people who like solving puzzles. I will say, though, the caveat there is you have to be okay with randomness thrown into the puzzle, too, because the game definitely has that. It's not a completely solvable puzzle game. And I'm okay with that, but some people may not be, so just know what you're walking into when you look at this game. You are looking at a vector-based puzzle-solving game with random elements of... that affect your vectors, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, I don't want a solvable game. I don't like solvable games. I don't think they're fun because if you're playing against somebody that knows how to solve it, well, then why am I even sitting here?
Tim, you should learn how to solve a Sudoku. Stop bringing it up, bro.
No, there's so many squares. No, but I really do like the variety. I think the weather deck is big enough, and they get dealt, enough cards get dealt out that I mean, Dan's right. If you have horrible weather the whole time and the person next to you has amazing or super clear weather the whole time.
Well, if the person next to you, just fly into their zone.
It's pretty good over there. You're going to have a much harder time. But the likelihood of that happening I just had a couple bad rounds in a row with the weather, but it didn't matter because my planes were all over the place anyways before that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to appreciate here. I haven't played anything like this. So, I mean, I think that's a big thing for me as well, is like, okay, because everything is constantly, you feel it. But the nice thing is it doesn't always have to move forward. Like I had this plane that I just had do like this big loop around, and it was
while waiting for his turn, he was circling the runway.
Yeah, and it, I had to go around this weather, and then I was going to basically turn it and then jack the speed up and try to fly in as fast as I could, because that was a plane that could go up to 4, which is, as far as I know, the fastest. So, like, it wasn't the worst thing in the world to have it all the way down here because I had plenty of engine tokens and I was built to be able to keep feeding it speed.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that strategy in there. And again, I can't think of a game I've played. I've played program movement games and I really like them, but I can't think of one that was like this specifically.
Something I wish I could have seen a little bit more in the game is you get a free rotation of your plane. Each of your planes has a specific direction that it can like go down, and at the beginning of each round you may rotate it 1 hex left or right. But you're given these engine tokens and you can choose to get 2 of them at the beginning of each round. And I feel like they were utilized, but I feel like they can serve a lot more purposes. For example, I wish I could spend one of these to add another left turn. So like a sharp turn. I mean, these planes, if you aren't able to land it and you have to take a right into someone else's airspace, you're literally spending 40% of the game to turn that thing around. Because you can only turn it left 1 each turn or right 1 each turn.
If you run into something, you get to keep turning it, but you get to take negatives.
Well, sure.
That's true. So you can purposely run into something.
Yeah, but just being able to use these tokens as a sharp turn.
Right.
And just giving
I
these...
can see it. Just more mitigation.
More mitigation, being able to get back on track, even being able to... turn things around when things don't go your way, because if a major storm does pop up and you have no way to move around it, then I feel like just giving these a little bit more utility would have plus I also wanted to fly the plane how I wanted. I was like, I just wish I could turn right just a little bit more.
Yeah,
so.
and you'd have to put a limit on it, right? You couldn't be like, I've got 4 tokens. I'm gonna barrel roll and do this, thing, whoop, and then I'll
just
go
like
the other
2
way.
clicks instead of 1 kind of.
But I believe I don't remember if it was in the interview or if she was just talking about it while we were playing the game with Danielle. But I believe that it's more like the planes are only built to do so much, right? Mm-hmm. These aren't fighter planes.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure,
These are,
sure.
these are passenger jets.
So it may not really be possible to...
Yeah, and that's where you just have to find out where that line between realism and fun is.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
she was an aircraft controller.
Is
an aircraft controller. What I like, so I was lining up things. I had no problem. I was just every turn landing, and then I landed one. It went back to here, and that next event said that when it lands next time, it has to be sitting on the runway for a whole nother round. I, by 1 round, missed getting a whole bunch of negatives because if I hadn't done it that turn, all the other things behind it would have been a massive pile up.
Yeah.
And that's because there was a fight on his plane.
So those events
that was an event card.
Can
that was really
be
fun.
deadly if they're at the right time or the wrong time. I also like, so when you land a plane, you get to either use the same kind of plane or pick a new one that you're going to use. And you can also, instead of getting the boosters, you can pick a new one, so you can have up to 8 planes. But there's definite strategy behind here because, like, this guy, he can go into cloudy weather and he has no problem. This guy cannot, no matter what, unless it's like an absolute emergency. But this guy will take a negative. And figuring out, do I want to have the guy who can take the negative? Do I want to have the guy who can't decelerate? There's strategy behind what you're picking down here.
Yeah, it's funny because the chartered planes, you lose points for flying them into weather because they're rich. They're rich passengers. You cannot fly just a straight up passenger plane into the weather because they will scream, and you can fly the cargo planes wherever you want because boxes don't scream, which is my favorite thing Danielle said when she was here talking about the game, which is hilarious. But yeah, lots of very, very cool things. Again, very unique. I haven't seen anything like this.
I particularly like. I was zipping someone into here. I was going like 3 or 4, and then I hit the city, and it goes all the way down to 1.
Yeah.
I'm like, put on those brakes.
Put the flaps down. Yeah.
Another thing I really appreciated was the alternate landing areas. When I
was one of
first
the
looked at
events.
the board and I was like, I have to land it on a single hex in this whole entire pie portion of my side. I was like, dude, that's tough. And it's like, give me somewhere else to land. And an event showed up where there's a special space on each of our boards where you have to. There was like a mission where you had to get a specific
municipal
plane
airport.
at a you
had to land it as soon as you could.
or that specific space. There's just a landing strip that was shorter on.
Yeah,
and I
smaller
loved
little
that. I
airport.
loved being able to land elsewhere on the board. So that was definitely a feature that I
And not all
enjoyed.
the events are bad. Sometimes it's like, oh, you get some engine tokens.
Yeah, that was-
Sometimes it's just headwinds and all your planes slow down. And they're like, dang it.
Something we haven't mentioned that we might as well before we close out is no matter what your player count is, you're playing with the whole board. You're playing with all adjacent sections. So because you can fly into them. So in this case, there was a 4-player board circled like this. Every player has to be adjacent. And then these two were adjacent to a player then. So they were both in play. They were getting weather just like everything else. There was just no starting planes on them. So that everyone can kind of like fly through there if necessary. So that's
Oh, it
an
was
important-
necessary.
Yeah.
Holy cats, I even went over to the.
Did you say holy cat?
Holy
did.
cats.
I touched
Holy
the orange side as well,
Jeez.
or the yellow or whatever that is. Yeah, that's orange over there. Did you get over too? as
No.
well? Oh, you
He
never?
almost did though.
Yeah, well, I was almost forced to.
You should have visited his area. There was really good weather over there.
Yeah, that's true.
He
I
had
had great
one
weather the
plane.
whole game.
He had one plane that had to get diverted into my area, and just like spent the rest of the time wandering around my area, taking a little sightseeing tour.
Yeah.
That was it was fun.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to be doing.
Shouldn't have put all those sites to be seen.
And then I
there.
had to. I realized I was going to crash 2 planes. So instead, a turn ahead, I had to divert one like way far away. I was like, well, that one's never landing. Just
Holy
give up.
cats.
And I also want to point out, in case you didn't watch the interview, this game is nothing like Die Hard 2. So the planes cannot crash. They will not crash into the
This is true.
runway.
This is true.
And they cannot crash in midair because there are computers in the planes that prevent that
And they
from happening.
don't turn sharp left and right.
No, not sharply.
I
Not
want to
sharply.
say TCAS. I'm not sure if that's 100% correct, but my memory is saying it's called TCAS, and that was like my favorite fact that I learned from this was the cool onboard computer that take control and make sure planes can't crash. It was very cool.
So they talk, and basically one will go left, one goes right, or up
Gotcha.
or down, things like that. And so it can't be like, you said left, and I thought you meant you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
going
yeah,
left.
yeah,
and
yeah.
so
Your
then,
left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, instead the computer's like, I thought you meant your left.
Your left.
I think that's featured in a Michael Crichton book.
Oh, yeah.
Airframe, yeah.
It's got the dial-up modem.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no! The stewardess picked up the phone. It shut out.
Event, someone on your plane is using a cell phone.
Yeah. It is 2024. This does not matter.
Also, Dan has famously bad memory, so if he was saying that wrong,
Exactly. Listen,
It's
I
a
don't.
thing.
I'm not an air traffic controller. That's just what my brain remembers.
that's true. That is true. All right. Anybody have any final thoughts on this before we wrap up?
I like the little. All of them have little jokes on them.
Again, prototype. I don't know if that
Yeah, we
will
don't know.
stay,
Yeah, it's
Well,
very.
yeah.
Yeah.
but there were some fun little dad jokes on
Yeah,
the
well,
cards.
see, honestly, my favorite was just because of how it's like a half joke. It just ends, and it made me laugh. One of my cards said, "It's a bird." No, it's a plane. And it just ends because it's just a plane. It doesn't
It
go
is
on to say it's
just a
Superman.
plane.
Yeah.
For
Nice
some
one,
reason,
nice
that really
one.
made me laugh. But yeah, we don't know what. We'll see on the Kickstarter page, which link will be in the description, what art style and stuff they wind up going with, because they did have a couple ideas in mind, and we will see what they wind up going with. Yep.
And overall, I would say if any of this sounds interesting to you, I would strongly recommend it. This game was really fun. It's crunchy, but not overwhelming. And again, the simultaneous turns eliminates a lot of the downtime, so the game keeps moving, just like your planes.
Player.
Anything else before we
The
sign off,
inexorable
boys?
movement.
That it?
I highly recommend it as well. There's just enough randomness with the weather and the events that it is, it'll mess up whatever, grand schemes you have. So I actually enjoyed that.
Yeah, I like puzzle solving games. This was an interesting puzzle. I have fun. I've played it twice now, and I had fun both times.
Awesome. Yeah, I would. I had a good time. I whenever I'm playing games that are kind of in this like pre-build, I'm always like, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that.
Of course.
But it was a great experience. I look forward to seeing all of the different directions that she takes with the final product. And yeah, I mean, I want to get our hands on it for a final review as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The worst thing you can do for a designer is say it's fine. You know?
Right.
Did I say it's fine?
No. What I'm saying
okay.
is you should be saying, "Ooh, I wish I could do that," and then whether
Yeah.
or not they implement it is up to them. But
Yeah.
they need to hear that. I think. So
Yeah. The worst feedback you can give somebody, it's like, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't feel like I shouldn't hold back
No,
suggestions.
no.
You know,
No, no.
'Cause I'm sure. Like if I thought of that in 5 minutes, I'm sure
Someone
she
else
thought
has.
of that, or somebody else
Yeah.
said that. Like I wish I could turn harder. You know, like
Yeah. You've never had an original thought.
very fair, very fair.
When
I
was
don't
the helicopter
disagree.
expansion coming out?
And then Andrew was done again.
Love the box though. The box is
Yeah, it's very
gritty,
cool.
very sharp.
cool. So, anyways, guys, this has been a rival push.
A game of vectors.
Thank you. I was going to make sure I tried to get this.
Or is it a game of Vector's Rival Push?
No.
Hush up. For the Board Game Rundown, I've been Tim.
I'm Andrew.
Spencer.
Daniel.
Thanks for watching.
And you can say the title's only 3 words. I sure picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue.
Spencer's like, I want to be in the end credit.
That's when I developed my drinking problem.